Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, brought to us by THQ. Based on the film of the same name, Home Alone 2, you play as Kevin McAllister, who is once again alone, this time in New York on Christmas, and he's trying to escape Marv and Harry, now known as the Sticky Bandits. The game is a much more traditional action platformer as opposed to the original NES release. And while it is vastly different, the lackluster design of the game actually I think makes this one worse than the original NES Home Alone. So here we go with Home Alone 2, Lost in New York for the NES. When we start the game, we get our opening cutscene before we jump. After the relatively lengthy opening cutscene, we finally get control of Kevin. The first level of the game takes place inside of the hotel. Start off by running to the right and jumping over the first moving suitcase. Use this couch to jump up and jar this gun loose from the background. You'll then be able to use this gun on enemies, but for the most part our goal is going to be avoiding as much combat as possible. Everything else, pretty much, other than a few select things such as ammo or some extra points, will hurt you, whether it's the other people inside the hotel, like the woman who ends up floating over your head, or a lot of inanimate objects like suitcases or mop buckets or even keys being thrown at you. When you make it to the end of the hallway, you're going to jump up here and start hitting the up button in order to hit the elevator button. With the elevator button, I don't know if you have to hit it a certain amount of times or just hit it once and then wait, but I found hitting it multiple times seems to work a lot better than just waiting for the elevator to show up. A good strategy is just hang out on the edge of this trash can while holding the button, and every time one of the suitcases comes towards you, just duck down. Ducking is actually the best move that Kevin has for avoiding enemies, especially in the first level, as it actually does damage to them. Once you're in the elevator, you'll be taken to a random floor between 11 and 15. Where we really need to go is floor 16, but we can't go there quite yet. In order to make it to that floor, though, you're going to have to travel to the other ones and go through them first. Your object here, though, is not to find any object or enter any of the rooms. You don't have to do any real exploring. You just have to go far enough to the right and then come back and go to the elevator so that the elevator has reset and you'll be able to press the button and move on to the next floor. If you come back too soon, the elevator door will still be open and you won't be able to enter. If you make it back to the left and the elevator door is closed, you can then hit the button and enter inside of it, and it'll take you to one of those other random floors. The order of these floors is different every time, but our strategy remains the same of just running to the right a certain amount of distance, watching out for enemies, usually sliding under one of the grannies, and then after making a certain amount of distance, usually 3 or 4 rooms over, I usually look in the background for whatever room is labeled the 4. So we started off at 1221 and made it to 1224, and then I came back, and that seems to reset the elevators. Coming back again, getting back into the elevator will now be taken to the next floor. In this case, we're going to floor number 15. Once here, immediately, once again, go to the far right and just duck underneath any of the grannies or mop buckets that are going to get in your way until you pass the room 1524, and once you have done so, you can then turn around and go back to the far left. The vacuum cleaner that moves along the floor will try to suck you into it, which is a little bit of an annoyance, but just time your slides properly and you'll be able to get underneath all the other enemies. The only things on screen for you to worry about are in the upper left corner, as you'll see your current life count with a little face next to it, as well as you also can see the ammo, or the amount of ammo that you currently have as well. Getting back into the elevator, we're going to be taken down now to floor number 11, and you're going to be doing more of what we've just been doing. You're going to duck underneath the grannies that are going to float over you and make it to room 1124 before you end up turning around and heading back to the elevator. Thankfully, this floor seems to have the least amount of other objects trying to run into you, with just a couple of grannies to duck underneath. Once you've explored all the other floors between 11 and 15, you will then be sent to floor 16. You may notice, of course, there's no floor 13 during the course of this, as a lot of places and a lot of buildings won't actually mention the floor as floor 13, even though 14 technically is the 13th floor. Either way, once on the 16th floor, you're going to jump into this room and grab the object right to the left of the door, which will speed you up greatly. Once you have this speed boost and invincibility, run all the way over to the far right and use the button next to the service elevator, and use this to go all the way down to the kitchen. Just so you know, there's also a hidden warp located in the second room on the 16th floor. If you're able to activate it, you'll instantly be taken to the next level and skip the kitchen portion of the first stage. Go over to the far right once you make it to the kitchen and grab the next gun, and then use 2 immediate quick shots. You have to be quick with it in order to hit the big guy twice. Once he's taken care of, you're going to jump on this conveyor belt and jump over the chefs in the background, avoid the projectiles that throw at you, and avoid the steam. Keep making your way to the left, avoid some cups, and duck underneath a couple of the chefs with the big butcher knives, because even they will hurt you, as well as the pieces of meat they throw out. For the boss fight of level number 1, we're going to fight this giant chef guy and duck into him. You can actually kind of glitch into him if you duck at the right spots, but either way, try to avoid him as he moves really slowly. And just do the running slide move on your knees. After only a couple of hits, he'll be taken care of, and we can enjoy the cutscene before we make it to level 2. The second level of the game is a lot more straightforward than the first one. The biggest nuisance is going to be these guys that pop out of the hedges and try to swipe at you with their sticks. You can easily do the sliding knee move in order to duck underneath their attacks. A little bit ways in, you'll also have to avoid some bats, but as long as you don't jump, you're okay, and there are rats that move along the bottom. When you have a rat and a bat together, you can usually either do a jump in between the two, or do your running knee to the rat. Once you make it to the left, you'll see a bunch of poles in the background. You can climb this pole and start climbing up, and then you're going to do some platforming amongst all these small blocks. The jumping in the game is a little bit loose, and he slides a lot when you do jump, but it's relatively easy to climb on up and make it to the very top of this giant wall. Once you've done so, you use some sliding moves to take out a couple of rats as you run your way to the far left and then drop off the far left side. Make a big running jump and you'll land safely, and then make it into the sewers from the open manhole. Once in the sewer area, you're going to do your running sliding knee move in order to avoid a lot of the things being dropped by all the birds down here. Kind of weird that there's so many birds in the sewer. Either way, once you get out of the sewer, continue going to the left, and now you'll have two types of guys who will pop out of the hedges. The guys in the white shirts are harder to dodge, so you actually have to wait. You can't do your running knee to them. You can only slide underneath the guys in the green. The building is a lot more difficult to deal with than the other parts of the game so far. You have a lot of tricky platforming you'll have to do between planks of wood, as well as you're going to have to take out the bandits. For example, here we have to climb on up and pull this rope at the right moment to drop the 10-ton weight down on the bandit, and if either one of them ends up grabbing you at any point, it's an instant death. So your goal is to do whatever you need to in order to avoid them. So for example, as soon as we make it to the next room, we're jumping off the furniture in order to spring over him. Just to the right of that, you need to drop down in between these two planks of wood, so you land on this platform and grab the key. Head to the left, and then go up to the door that has up on it. Now in the next room, you're going to use the paint bucket by shooting it to drop it down, and it will cause a paint spill on the ground. Just run into it, take some damage, and then run past the bandit. After you make it past Marv, then you're going to make it to these logs, and you're going to have to shoot 3 logs, and they'll start rolling across the ground. Go along with them so all 3 of them end up running into Harry, who's upcoming, and it'll knock him off screen. Then you're going to have to continue doing the tricky platforming. On the very far right, you're going to find a bell that you can use, and this is going to change your jump from here on out in the game. This weird jump actually does help you because you'll jump higher, but the timing can be a little bit difficult to get used to, especially when you're jumping on those very small planks of wood that you need to traverse. Once you have the key in your possession, though, you have to backtrack all the way to the left, and thankfully both of the bandits are taken care of. Go up the next door that says up on it, and you'll be in the red floor. Thankfully, there's no bandits here. It's just dust and whatever else is falling from the ceiling, and just some more of that platforming as you make your way across the room to the far right, where you're going to be gathering another key. Just take your time and make these jumps as best as possible so that you can make it to that side and you don't have to redo areas here. Once you have the key in your possession, just jump on back to the left. Thankfully, the dust particles that are falling down are actually reflected off of you if you're doing that spin jump that we got from the bell item in the blue hallway. Once you do make it all the way back to the left, hit up again, and this time you're going to be on the roof. And there, this is where things get interesting. Jump all the way down, and once you make it to the ground level here, you're going to hold right and run all the way to the far right side. You're going to be being chased by Marv and Harry, but what's great is that you can actually make it to this far right, duck when you see a couple of bats, this way you'll take out the rat enemies, and then as you keep running, you're going to see pie plates fly from the top right corner. As soon as you see the first pie plate, do a jump, a little short jump. This way you'll avoid the second pie plate that's going to come your way. It's like a nice little timing system to get you ready. Once you've made it past the 4 set of pie plates, just keep holding right, and now you're at the end of the game, the giant Christmas tree. This is tricky to explain, but basically you have to climb up and deal with the bandits along the way. You can shoot them, knock them off screen, but you have to just keep on focus on climbing as they will just keep spawning. When you make it to the top, the bird lady is actually waiting for you, floating around in the treetop. You have to yell for help, and when you do, she throws items down. These items will then collide with the bandits. You have to hit each bandit 3 times, and a turtle dove will spawn and take out the bandit. Once both are done, you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Home Alone 2. So there you have Home Alone 2 Lost in New York for the NES. The game is extremely short, and being THQ, it's not extremely well programmed, that's for darn sure. Getting used to the platforming, especially inside of the building on those planks of wood, and then let alone figuring out what you were supposed to do during the boss battle, will take up most of your time here. Either way, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.